Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Government Secrets with Lee Camp. Bum, 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 bum.
Hey, man.
Buddy, this is episode 53. We've been doing this over a year now.
Man, this is the longest relationship I've ever had.
It is. It is pretty long. The longest relationship I have had have all been podcasts.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot lie. I did my movie podcast for 10 years with Chris Mancini. I spent more time with him. My marriage was 5 years. So, I mean, this is like.
Yeah, I think my marriage was 4. So, yeah.
Oh, you've been married before?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I did the horrors of divorce. We can do a whole, you want to do a whole episode of that?
Let's do that like at Christmas. Like, let's ruin. I want to plan on ruining major holidays for people. That's kind of what I want to do.
Yeah, because it's the type of pain where it actually ruins other people's lives. If you
Yes,
just tell
yes.
them, you just tell them about it, and they're like, that my month is shot. That's
And they'll remember like their parents getting divorced or their divorce. So it's really like the viral video of pain and suffering.
So you're not. Let's save that for the live show, maybe.
Yeah, we're gonna have an audience mic, and everybody just stand up and tell their divorce story, and and the best one gets a free popcorn. So we're really gonna celebrate it with panache. But you're not married now.
Yeah, technically I am actually.
I'm sorry. Am I digging into my
Well, it's confusing. It's confusing. We don't have to get into all the politics of it. We don't believe in like the marriage contract, so we did our own thing.
Okay, you guys did some hippie seance or whatever.
Hippies, rather than the CIA shit, please sign your love over to the government. Sign this contract that says that the government is aware you're in love and that you will be in that love until such time as someone breaks the contract, and the government would like to be a part of that. So we didn't want to do that per se, so we went a different route.
Oh, I love it. I love that you guys did some alternative ceremony wedding thing. Goddamn love it. Like, if I ever get married again, gonna need a girlfriend first. So there's a couple steps in this.
Hold on, you can't just go out and say, just ask any random stranger.
We should be able to do that. I mean, anybody on TikTok want to get married? Hit me up. We'll do it. We'll do it over the phone tomorrow.
It is interesting. I feel like you could walk up to a girl nowadays and say, "Will you marry me?" and probably not get too much flack for it. Whereas if you walked up and just said, "Can I touch your breast?" you could get Me Too'd for that. But if it's a longer commitment that you just propose to them, then it's fine.
Can I be a creep to you for a long time?
A long time, yeah.
Long-term creepness. Well, now, Lee, you've inspired me. If I do ever get married again, we got to get to the girlfriend or even just like a date. We got to get past those couple of hurdles.
She's got to meet your ferret. It's yeah.
I think
Mr. Munchkin has to approve.
She will have to meet my ferret. Absolutely correct. And I don't know if I will do some sort of like hippie, whatever, essential oil ceremony you guys did, the bonding of chakra crystals, whatever you guys did.
Listen, man, you don't understand. Sometimes the auras conflict and you gotta right. Kind of melt them. You have to melt them into each other.
I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, man.
I feel like this has been a year-long process of trying to, like, by the end of this, you too will think you need an aura melding, a chakra melding ceremony. By the end of the podcast, it's so far in this year, I've just slowly brought you over to the dark side.
Oh, dude, not you didn't bring me. Look, I grew up on a crate. My dad did tarot card readings. Like I've grown up with this shit. That's why I'm so like, got it. You're right, hippie. Okay, like I'm down with it on certain levels. I mean, look, I meditated this morning.
It's true. You're more hippie than I am.
I am in many ways. I'm way more hippie, but then I do have this like rejection of because I've seen the nonsense of the hippie world. Obviously, the like churches and all that world. I know I was also raised Catholic, so I know how awful organized religion is too. I know how awful humans can be, Lee. That's why we do this show, is that people are all horrible. But
I don't. How did you have Catholicism and tarot cards in the same house? I mean, I understand it is all fairy tales, but it's interesting you'd have those two together,
right? Isn't it? Like it shows you want to know who I am, like that. I was raised with that. My parents took me to Dachau when I was like 5 when we lived in Germany, so that was like
that's a little early.
A little early. College professor dad, like, well, you kids need to know. Really? The 5-year-old needs to know about ovens for people? Great. Like, so I was like, oh, so my sister's easy. My older sisters, because I'm the youngest, my older sister's easy bake oven. So they put people in that? Well, kind of, son. Thanks, Pop.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And then we came back to America and we go around the classroom like, hey, what did you do? What Timmy, what did you do? Oh, my dad taught me how to make a go-kart. And Susie, what'd you do? Oh, we built a campfire in the Girl Scouts. Graham, what'd you do? I went to a death camp. Anyway,
Dude, I will never think about shoes the same way. So yeah, everybody else, you're learning how to tie your shoes. I'm sobbing in the corner.
Yeah, I'm sobbing in the corner. So I think then growing up with hippies and seeing like some of the good side of the hippies and the anti-war movement and anti-Vietnam War movement in the 70s that I got to see. I also got to see hippies do dumb shit and then see conservatives do dumb shit. And so I really have a like, oh, you guys all can be dumb. So I really found the common thread.
Dude, I am in many ways. I will be the first to call out stupid hippie shit. I make fun of you every day. So your green smoothies and your shit. But no, but like, well, in LA,
I'm part of the problem. I mean, I freely admit I'm part of the problem.
In LA, you can literally like you go into some smoothie shops and pay extra for like intention water where it has like an emotion in it. And you're like, what? Wait, someone put hope into this water? Yeah, that's why it's $15 a glass. I stood over it and I put hope into it. And
God.
And also there's a lot of hippie. I mean, what killed I think the original hippie movement was that it was all like, hey, if we all just put love into the world, man, then you don't have to actually fight against any of this shit. And meanwhile, the fucking ruling elite were like, yeah, just go home and put love into the world and we'll handle it from here. If you just honestly just sit and let your love out.
Yeah, no, that's true. The original hippies were actually lefty activists. I mean, they were like, socialists and communists who were like, the system's broken. And then this is probably a separate government secret. Then the government, CIA came in and went, hey, why don't you guys get high and just have sex in a field and stop paying attention? And everyone went, you got it. And it's like, well, and by everyone, the summer of love, let's be real clear. The summer of love was the summer of love for white kids. In the inner cities, they were fucking getting fought and blown up and shot and,
and that's in multiple respects. Some people like to go, man, if we just go back to the summer of love, all would be well. Yeah, not for black people in America, but the same. It's funny because conservatives also have that. If we just went back to the 1950s, man, leave it to Beaver. Those were the good times in America. Yeah, not for the black folks in America, not for the Native Americans. Oh, well, but for a certain brand of white bread, very white, extremely white, cover your eyes white family, it was great.
And I love the other thing too about the 50s there, when you say to the conservatives, they want to go back, but you can also, yes, it was totally, the 50s were great if you were a straight white white guy or white woman, even white women had less rights, but they still had more rights than people of color. But even then, even the thing that this era that they think is so great, the conservatives always, I always go, yeah, you remember when the 50s that had the highest union membership, the highest tax rate, the highest banking regulation. That's why it was so good.
You mean highest tax rate for the rich? Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Highest tax rate for the rich. Highest. We had the most banking regulation on the books. Yep. We had the highest membership in unions, which was part of the upward mobility. The American dream was you could get a job working, for a company, for a factory, and work your way up and make good money and have good benefits and take your family to the next level.
It's what allowed the New Deal to pass. It's what made it possible for FDR to do that shit. There was a massive group of people when you combine the socialists, the communists, the people in unions, you combine them all together. It's a massive group of people with a lot of power. And he basically said to the corporate titans, either you do this, you agree to these things like Social Security, and we keep this capitalist gravy train going, or you don't, and it all collapses.
Yeah. And they went, oh, that's the last time we're going to let someone unify all these groups.
Yeah.
But
and if you look, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but back to what type of marriage I might have if I ever get married again.
Yes.
I don't think it'll be a hippie one. I think it might be some kind of like samurai warrior ceremony where we draw blades and something like that.
And you cut each other and share blood, right?
Yes. And bond as two warriors and, katanas forged out of steel, forged out of hot coals, something to that effect.
All right. So we need to start looking for women for you at MMA events.
Oh, that's what people are like, Graham, how come you're not dating? You should be dating. I go, do you know how difficult it'd be? I used to think I was low maintenance. I'm a very high maintenance person, Lee. Clearly there's no just
the maintenance I have to put into this podcast for you is just a lot.
You and our anonymous assistant have to drag me along every week. This is how high maintenance I am. It's like people like just me. I'm like, yeah, that's so easy to just find some woman that's, like a vegan mixed martial artist, with a master's degree in environmental economics, just somebody who they're out there. They're all over the place.
A very smart vegan yoga green juice doing surfer MMA chick who is also very intelligent and jaded about the world
and likes Trotsky. You know what I mean? Just and wants to travel and go to museums. You know what I mean? Like that.
But for everyone listening right now who's like, that's me, all three of you, please email Graham.
Because I did do yoga earlier today, and then I had a green smoothie that is making my muscles are getting bigger. I'm going crazy. I'm going to start taking like testosterone or something. I think I want to just go nuts and just fucking roid out, just like.
Every time I see those ads for get your T-zone going or whatever the fuck they say, it's like, yeah, that's what this world needs. Just fucking more testosterone. Really, guys aren't walking around hard enough, fucking enough things. Could you really get your testosterone, fellas? That's what this world needs.
There's not enough toxic masculinity, Lee. So now there's a pill that can just
it's called toxic masculinity. The energy drink.
Just fucking roided out testosterone guys who then wash the pills down with like a Red Bull and just be like, that's what we need more of.
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's do our government thing. That was a bit.
Well, see, I blame this all on you because you brought up marriage in the first 30 seconds, and
then all of a sudden,
been a mess.
All of a sudden, we're talking about the tax structure in the 50s. And
all of a sudden, we're 25 minutes in. We've both laughed, cried, and now it's the show's half over.
We haven't even done one segment yet, and we've covered all that stuff. The hippie movement was subjugated by drugs and sex, and so great. Well, that's our show, folks. Thank you for tuning in.
We did it. Please come to the live show in LA, September 18th. We'll do the same shit.
I'm wondering, with a live audience, will we get to even one segment if we just start riffing and we're getting laughs? I feel like no.
No, probably not. We'll probably go wherever the laughs are, which means a lot of stool humping, a lot of humping the stool. So.
That's the big government secrets. We're just two horror comics that will literally slap our asses to get laughs. Do not care how we get the laugh. Don't care if it's calling out Nixon and the CIA or just making a jack off gesture. I don't care either way.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Let's get to our government secret first segment after the weird marriage diatribe.
But we got marriage and Dachau in the same segment. That's always good. I mean, that's how I view some of marriage.
They're pretty much, I mean,
yeah, they're not that far off.
It's a little bit of a your work will set you free. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little.
You're lucky we have at least one Jew here. This would be a mess. This would be illegal. It would be illegal in 10 states.
That's the only reason I keep going, because I know, well, I'm covered because Lee's.
It's the same reason I make a lot of Catholic priest jokes. I know. You've got that side covered.
Oh, anyone should make fun of the Catholic Church. Everyone, you have my permission as a fallen Catholic to make fun of that church. I don't care what religion you came in. Go hard on the Catholics.
Yeah.
Throw fastballs right at their head. Anyway, this is the most ground covered in an intro segment that we've ever done. So, there was an operation launch here, something I was going to do, but we're going to cover that at a different time because obviously we're talking a lot about Afghanistan in the news, and it's been everything about Afghanistan's been handled perfectly, really great, and proud of how America is.
I know. I was hoping we'd get something out of that, but it's just gone so smoothly.
Yeah, it's just been like.
By the way, I just came back from my trip, and I was at Dulles, and I was pretty out of it, jet lagged and shit, and wasn't really paying attention. And I was like, and we were waiting in line at passport control for like half an hour, just slowly moving forward in a super spreading event, and. They're like, oh, you're coming into America? Just everybody get on top of each other. And yeah, if you could just make sure that your crotch is touching the ass of the man in front of you. And yeah, just if everybody could do that, then we'll be ready to go here. There's only 3,500 of you. So just get on in the line and this will be great. And I was pretty out of it. It didn't occur to me till after I had waited in line for half an hour that, there was a long line of like 100 people in very traditional Arab garb alongside our group, like kids that look like deers in headlights, had never seen anything like all of us standing in line. And of course, so afterwards I was like, holy shit, that was Afghan refugees in line at Dulles. And like, these poor kids, like 10-year-olds, I mean, at least they're the ones getting out of there, but are standing in line and staring over at the American jackasses that are sitting there like, Mom, I don't want to stand here anymore. Why can't I play the video game on the phone for 3 more hours? I can't, Mom, I can't.
The kid's got a PS2 in his hand that could feed that family in Afghanistan for a month. For real. And the Department of Defense just ordered 6 airlines to send passenger jets to pick people up in Afghanistan and take them through Dulles. I just was watching this on the news this morning. So like, that's what you were witnessing.
Yep.
In light of America's great record of wars, I want to talk about a war the Forgotten War, and how we used chemical weapons in the Korean War. So it wasn't just that we used them in the war zone, which is awful. I'm going to first read this, but I'm going to get into how they tested it on people in the San Francisco area going into the war. So,
yeah, so that I referenced some of that in the. I went through like the 100 times the U.S. has used germ warfare on our own people, and so I referenced San Francisco, but we didn't like get too deep into it. But
yeah. So first, I'll go into this is from again Wikipedia, and not that as we said before, not that we're huge. Like Wikipedia is 100% accurate, but the point is, if it's in Wikipedia, then there's some truth. If Wikipedia is saying this happened,
then that means even the liberals have admitted to it.
Even neoliberal warmongers have gone, yeah,
okay, that kind, yeah, all right.
So the Korean War, which was from June of 1950 to July of 1953, and is largely regarded as the forgotten war, were raised by the governments.
Not by them.
Not in Korea. The country's still divided as a result of it. So the governments of China, the Soviet Union, and North Korea, the claims, now again, this is Wikipedia saying claims, so I don't know if we can trust them, were first raised in 1951. The story was covered by worldwide press and led to a highly publicized international investigation in 1950 suit. So the international community is like, wait a minute. The Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, and other U.S. and allied government officials denounced the allegations, which is weird because usually the American government and the military always own up to a mistake. Always, right?
Yeah. And I mean, of everything we've covered on this show, do you think these claims might have been true, or I feel like probably completely false, right?
Probably false. I mean, come on. Name one thing the United States and the U.S. military has done that was wrong. Name one.
I'll eat my shorts if you can come up with one. Just one.
I'll eat my hippie vegan wedding food if you can tell me one time.
Which, let's be honest, hippie vegan wedding food, inedible.
If we combined your ceremony and my diet, we would have the perfect hippie wedding. Because your hippie ceremony had like steaks and beer, whatever, and then
all right, I don't eat meat.
All right, there you go. Okay, there it is.
I'm not vegan. I'm not pure like you, but I don't eat meat.
Okay. Oh, I hope someone's flipping out in the chat. Lee Camp eats cheese. We're gonna cancel him.
Hashtag cheese too.
Cheese too. God damn it. Put that in the archives of the best jokes of the show. That's right up there with Loch Ness Monster is the mayor of Atlantis.
I mean, if there was going to be another name for the show, Loch Ness
it would
Monster,
be
mayor of Atlantis.
That has to be that's the government secrets, the Loch Ness Monster is the mayor of Atlantis has got to be the long title of the show. Yep. So in the background, until the end of World War II, Japan operated a covert biological and chemical weapon warfare research and development unit called Unit 73 in an area, Hartan, I think that's now China. The unit's activities, including human experimentation, were documented by the war crime trials conducted by the Soviet Union in December of 1949. However, at that time, the U.S. government described the, I can't pronounce this name, Khabarovsk, that's where the war crime trials were, as vicious and unfounded propaganda. So already starting in 1949, when there was war trials against the Japanese, the U.S. was like, hey, don't go so hard on them for their chemical weapons testing.
Right. Yeah. Listen, we've all done a little chemical weapons testing.
Come on. You know what I mean? Who cast the first chemical weapon stone? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was later revealed that the accusations made against the Japanese military were correct. The U.S. government had taken over the research at the end of the war and had then covered up the program. So when we found out what the Japanese were doing, we went, hey, great idea. Let us handle the rest. And then bomb them, as we've covered on this show. You talked about how the Japanese were willing to surrender. We didn't have to drop the A-bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but we did anyway, and then took over their chemical weapons program.
Nice.
So,
well, you know,
right?
You want to get something for your efforts.
Yes. I mean, if you find a chemical weapons program, you don't just throw it away.
Right.
I mean, this is what like narcotics cops do when they make a big drug bust and they're like, we should keep a little something for ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
This guy's going away for life. The amount of coke he had on him. So you want to go do some coke?
Yeah, you guys want to sell a little bit of it and then do some blow?
Yeah,
I'm in. So basically, the United States government is like corrupt narcotics cops, is what we're saying. Absolutely, and leaders of Unit 73 were exempted from war crimes prosecution by the United States. So,
yeah, we're good. If there's one skill the United States has, is getting around war crimes tribunals and charges.
Oh man, that's kind of our jam. You know what I mean? It's like, so not only is, and by the way, as we've covered in numerous episodes of this show, Operation Paperclip, Operation Treadstone, we supported Nazis, used them for our research here in this country. We also did the same thing for Japanese war criminals. So these people that we were enemies against, that we sent young American men to die fighting, we then went, some of the worst guys, they had some good ideas. You know,
I feel like it's like we rolled in there and we were like, we defeated them and we were like, what you did is fucked up. And that's why we had to come in here. But also, Cyclone B, not bad, guys. Well done, guys. That was, among those of us in the biz, that was pretty sweet what you did.
That was pretty, I mean, not for nothing, props. You know what I'm saying? Like, knuckle up, bro. Really good work.
You better surrender. Also, high five on that one.
High five. Seriously, we'll just do low five away from the cameras, but for real,
behind the back five,
really solid work. So again, a government secret I didn't know, that we excused these guys because we took over their chemical weapons program. On June 30, 1950, soon after the outbreak of the Korean War, the U.S. Defense Secretary George Marshall received the report of the Committee on Chemical, Biological, and Radiological Warfare and Recommendations, which advocated urgent development of a biological weapons program. The Biological Weapons Research Facility at Fort Detrick, Maryland was expanded, and a new one in Pine Bluff, Arkansas was developed. By the way, complete wacky coincidence, that same Fort Detrick had a bunch of pathogens disappear in 2019, and then a pandemic broke out 6 months later. Anyway, that's like, don't worry about that. Just keep walking. In 1951, as the war turned against the United States, the Chinese and North Koreans made vague allegations of biological warfare, but these were not pursued. General Mather Ridgway, United Nations commander in Korea, denounced the initial charges as early as May 51. He accused the communists of spreading deliberate lies. A few days later, Vice Admiral Charles Turner Joy repeated the denials, which I get it. In the middle of a war, you're going to say, oh, of course, my enemy is saying crazy stuff. But the whole point of this is there's evidence to show that, no, we were doing this. On January 1962, the Chinese People's Volunteer Army headquarters received a report of a smallpox outbreak southeast of Incheon. From February to March 1952, more bulletins reported disease outbreaks in the area of a bunch of provinces I can't pronounce, but four different provinces.
I'm sure anyone who speaks Korean is thankful you are not.
Right? Isn't that the courageous thing to do, to not butcher this and just say, I can't pronounce these, I'm sorry. The Chinese soon became, so there was four there was 3 Korean provinces and even a Manchuria, even a Chinese province that had it. The Chinese soon became concerned when 13 Korean and 16 Chinese soldiers contracted cholera and the plague. The bubonic plague came back in the 1950s in Korea. Weird. And another 40.
It happens. Just if you're like really stressed out,
We've all had a plague. You know what I mean? It's all come out. While another 44 recently deceased were testing positive for meningitis, although the Chinese and the North Koreans did not know exactly how the soldiers contracted the disease, as the suspicion soon fell on the Americans.
They're like, oh, isn't that odd? This guy, he seems to have died of the plague and ricin and anthrax all at the same time. And Lyme disease. Isn't that weird?
I guess maybe he had a bad glass of milk. I don't know.
Bad milk. Maybe he walked through a bush he shouldn't have. Yeah.
I mean, is he allergic to bee stings? Have we looked at that?
They often, bees have gotten smart. They often sting with the plague. They started plague stings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we know already there's meningitis carrying bees. Can't even say it with a straight face. On February in 1952, the North Korean foreign minister made a formal allegation that the American planes had been dropping infected insects onto North Korea. He added that the Americans were openly collaborating with the Japanese bacteriological war criminals, the former jackals of the Japanese militarists, whose crimes are attested to by irrefutable evidence. Among the Japanese war criminals sent to Korea were Shiro Ishii, Jiro Wakamatsu, and Masajo Kilano. The accusations were immediately denied by the U.S. government. The accusations were supported by eyewitness accounts by the Australian reporter Wilfred Burchett and others. In June 52, the United States...
Just a logistics thing here. When they were dropping infected insects, did they give them tiny parachutes?
Well, I hope so.
I feel like we need to nail that down.
That's something I wouldn't put it past our dumb government to waste taxpayer dollars on, is insect parachutes.
I want to see the ticks with the parachute on just being dropped.
Yeah. Having little parachutes swinging.
The insects must have been like, what? They're not going to fucking throw us out this plane. Are they? Like, that's not, what the fuck are these fucking assholes doing? This is, no, I don't, why is he putting a little parachute on me? This is, God damn it. I told you these motherfuckers were crazy. I told you they were crazy.
They're going to throw us out of a plane. I've been trying to tell you this, dude. That's why they boxed us up.
I told you they weren't just flying us to Hawaii for a vacation. I told you.
Why do they give us all this weird? Why do they give us all this weird medicine? Oh God. So, this was supported. In 1953, China and North Korea produced 2 captured U.S. Marine Corps pilots to support the allegations. Colonel Frank Schwabel was reported to have stated that the basic objective was that at that time to get under field conditions various elements of bacteriological warfare and possibly expand field tests at a later date into an element of regular combat operations. Schwabel's statement said that B-29s flew biological warfare missions to Korea from airfields in American-occupied Okinawa starting in November 1951. Schwabel's statement was obtained following months of torture and abuse at the hands of his captors, according to the U.S. military. Other captured Americans, such as Colonel Walter Bud Merriam, made similar statements.
I feel like the U.S. military was like, so he was totally tortured. Also, what he said was true, but that's not the point. The point is he was tortured.
A lot of guys were. I mean, come on. So this is where now I want to go into part of the testing, because again, you could say, "Oh, the guy was tortured." That's obviously something you could do, right?
Well, something that backs this up that I'm gonna just throw in here. We've mentioned him before. Frank Olson is the CIA scientist who We mentioned him on like CIA using LSD episode.
Right.
He's the one murdered by the CIA, and there's a great Netflix series on it that's both like interesting from just like a thing to watch, but also completely based on reality. They dosed him with LSD, and apparently during those trips or around the same time, he started to have qualms about what he was doing, and he was working with, these type of weapons for the CIA, like bacteriological weapons, and it's germ warfare, and basically couldn't handle it anymore and wanted out. And soon thereafter, he, according to the CIA, walks out of a window in Manhattan. And, he took the quick way down to the sidewalk. And so, yeah, they basically murder him. But, yeah, that's what he was likely or maybe provably involved in, and didn't want to be involved in it anymore.
Oh, yeah. It's so this is, again, this is an article in the New Republic about the testing now of germ warfare on American citizens. So this is in late September of 1950, just as U.S. armed forces were surging up the Korean peninsula, residents of the San Francisco Bay Area noticed an odd odor. The unidentifiable smell hung around for a week. People scratched their heads and pointed fingers. They thought the problem could be their neighbors cooking Brussels sprouts, or maybe it was a sewer gas. What they didn't suspect is that they were being sprayed with microorganisms by their own government. But they were. From offshore ships, researchers working for the Army, Navy, and CIA. Gotta love it when it's weird. It's like, there's no episode that we've done where they weren't somehow involved in some aspect of at least one of the government secrets we're doing.
The CIA their head always pops up.
It's weird. It's weird that they always just happen to be around. And they engulf the area in Serratia, Mascarians, Bacillus. I don't know what these words are.
When we did the episode on germ warfare on the U.S. population, I also totally butchered the name of that, and now here we are again. The name of the bacteria that was sprayed on San Francisco
was like Serratia, Marcescens, Bacillus, globigli. I don't know.
The key is to go fast, Graham, so no one notices.
Yeah, and say with authority. Yeah. Serratia, Marcescens, Bacillus, go cliggly. Right?
So they sprayed on the people of San Francisco.
Well, this is what I learned from Brian Williams. You lean in, and then you put one of the eyebrows up.
One eyebrow up. Yeah.
And then, this guy must know what he's talking about.
If you're talking about how you were shot in Libya.
Yeah, you were shot in Libya. Or when you say, I'm guided by our rockets of joy, or whatever, when he started whacking off to us, bombing poor people. That's how you sell it. So they also had zinc, cadmium sulfide particles. Again, not close to the correct pronunciation. Residents, not realizing they had become unwitting test subjects, breathed it in. Nearly every one of the 800,000 people living in San Francisco, according to a government report. In theory, the germs and chemicals were innocuous, but a local hospital was surprised by the sudden appearance of nearly a dozen cases of Serratia marcescens bacteria infections never seen in that hospital before. One infected patient, a retired pipe fitter, died.
Yep.
I mean, this article goes on to talk about other times they've done it to people. Well, but this supports.
But here's a reason to not feel bad for the Koreans. We did it to us too. So. We wouldn't do to you anything we wouldn't do to our own people.
We're torturing and bombing our own people. We're spraying them with chemical weapons.
Yeah. What more do you want from us?
It's like some abusive parent who beats someone up going, hey, I beat my own kids too. So let's not with the crying.
Did you just punch my kid? Listen, I beat my own kids a lot.
I beat my own kids too. It's even Steven. Everything's fair. So I think that kind of shows, again, another government secret about a war nobody talks about, the Korean War, and a war actually one of my uncles fought in. He was in the Marines. He was in the Chosin Valley. He was deployed out of Pearl Harbor, the very end of World War II. I think he fought in Guam towards the end of the war, but I don't know how much fighting he saw. I'm not sure, but he did see a lot in the Korean War. And then he came home and he was never the same guy again, and took his own life.
What did you say?
See, he took his own life in the late 60s, I think, before I was born.
Shit.
Yeah. Yep. That's another reason I'm very anti-war. But who knows all the reasons. I know, yeah, he had a tough, I know my grandmother was fucking mean as a snake. So I mean, I'm sure there was some of that, but yeah, he fought in the Chosin Valley, which is, for those of you who don't know, that's when we crossed, I forget what it was, the 49th parallel or something. And China said, yeah, if you cross that and they flooded in like 100,000 troops. And so these Marines were basically, it was like a couple thousand Marines versus, I don't know the exact numbers, but literally it was like 3,000 Marines versus like 80,000 Chinese troops. And they had to fight through the winter, and they were cut off from and he had to do, I guess, awful stuff to survive. Most of the guys in his unit didn't survive. And he came back and everybody said he was a different guy.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
And also, as if, I mean, nowadays, currently, mental health of people in the military is ignored or looked down upon, or, I mean, so many of them don't get the help they need. And it's like, but whatever little bit we have today, it was nothing back then. It was like, you come back and you were expected to just man up and take it.
Yeah. You're shell shocked, snap out of it. And that's, I mean, you talk about the obvious horrible impact of war is people dying, cities being destroyed, money being spent, families being torn apart. But then you talk about stuff like what my uncle is, just one guy. You talk about all these, especially back then. I mean, still happen, but like you said, we barely do anything today, and it's like leaps and bounds better than back then. So there's this intergenerational trauma that happens from the families, from the returning soldier that comes home. I know so many people who had a dad that was like in Vietnam or something, and he was a rager or an alcoholic or violent or whatever, and that's from the war. And yeah. I don't know, like, because my aunt, after he took his own life, she really kind of shut off, and she burned a lot, got rid of stuff from him. So it's hard to know like what he was going through. She just was really hurt by that. But my cousins were like, who are older, way older than me, are like, yeah, he was a different guy when he came home. My dad said that he was a different guy when he came home. And that's all this intergenerational trauma from war. This is what it does. It just, and I mean, you're seeing a lot of American soldiers that served in Afghanistan now watching what's happening the last 2 weeks going, what did I do over there? What was the point of it? They're having all these mixed emotions. Like, did I even help? We're abandoning the Afghan people. Like, what the hell was the point of this? Like, it's all
right. Why? And why did a lot of them claim that like the reason they were fighting was basically to protect their friends and their fellow soldiers. Whatever the mission was, they knew the missions were insane. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? But they're going to fight to protect their fellow soldiers. And now, same point. It's like, why did my friend die? Why is my friend not have legs anymore? Like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, no good reason. Just to enrich a tiny number of individuals and, to make sure that these countries over there remain failed states. But other than that, no real reason.
I mean, back to your point too, of the like man up. One of the reasons the heroin went kind of crazy in the 50s and the jazz, it hit the jazz community and stuff like that. There's a great play called Hat Full of Rain. This is almost never talked about. I've never seen a World War II movie that really talked about this, but so field medicine in World War II, they were given not heroin, but a similar type painkiller. God, I'm blanking on the name.
Morphine.
Yeah, it was morphine. That's what it was. It was morphine. So that's what they were given. So guys that got wounded in World War II came home morphine addicts.
Yeah.
And that's where like the the heroin epidemic in the late 40s and 50s took over, it was a lot of World War II vets. Yeah. And so they were hooked on morphine. So now they were doing heroin. And there's a play, A Hat Full of Rain, that covered it. It's the only time I've ever seen it in any popular culture. I've never seen anybody talk about it. And, you know, we created a whole generation of heroin addicts who were told to suck it up. I mean, it was one of the themes in Mad Men was a lot of these guys were veterans that were alcoholics and ragers and had PTSD that nobody talked about. I mean, there was sort of a subplot of Mad Men, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of not in terms of World War II, but in terms of Vietnam, my dad actually wrote a book about it. He was a psychoanalyst over there, psychiatrist over there in Vietnam, but so he didn't end up fucked up because he wasn't on the front lines, but he was treating the soldiers that came back fucked up, or not came back, but were still over there, but very fucked up. And he finally, it came out like 5 years ago. You know, it's not an easy read. It's not like a novel. It's a dense medical book on just how horrible it was for mental health of these soldiers in Vietnam. And many of them did become addicted to substances because, you know, multiple reasons, but they go over there. Many of them don't want to because they've been drafted. They have no desire to be involved in this war. They don't really understand it. And then on top of that, you have very cheap heroin over there. Like literally, he said soldiers could go over to the fence that kept out the locals, and a little kid, you know, a 10-year-old would come up and they'd give him $1 and get a pack of heroin that was, you know, equivalent to whatever, $50 in the United States. And you know, these guys got to go out there and risk their lives and watch their friends die in front of them. And so they get really fucked up, and then they come back really fucked up. And like you're saying, it gets passed on to children and families, and it just goes down the line. So.
Yeah. And, but you know, at least we gassed our own people in San Francisco. So that's
but at least we got that. You know, we'll always have that. It's like some say we'll always have the summer of '69. I say we'll always have gassing our own people as something we can come together on. And just one little side note, I feel like it should be a footnote in a conversation like this, or, you know, maybe a textbook that mentions the Korea War. We killed a third of their population. A fucking third. Like, the number of people we killed in North Korea is, you cannot overstate it. It's unbelievable. You have in like generals who were all in for the war that are quoted as saying things like, we didn't know what else to bomb. We had destroyed everything. Like, they just started bombing villages because they knocked out all the infrastructure and they didn't have targets anymore. Like, they killed a third of their population, and you wonder why North Korea is a little skeptical of the U.S. Like,
and even with that skepticism, there's been numerous times where North Korea has tried to back channel peace, and we've said no because we need a boogeyman in the region to justify having military bases that basically are to keep Russia and China in check.
And for all the reasons that, you know, for everything that Trump was a fucking awful, horrible piece of shit about, he did try and create peace with North Korea, largely just because he wanted to have his name on that. You know, I finally did it. So it's an ego thing. It's not anything that it doesn't make him a good human being, but it was stopped. You know, the military made sure to stop efforts to create peace. Pompeo, Bolton made sure to stop it. You know, Trump literally tried to create peace with North Korea, and the weapons contractors, the military industrial complex, made sure to stop him.
Yeah. And then MSNBC and CNN, everyone was screaming, and to listen to neoliberals online, like, what's Trump doing? He's selling out to his pal. And it's like, he's trying to find peace. Like, even when he met with Putin, I was like, two superpowers that could end all life on planet Earth with their nuclear weapons are trying to find peace. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Even if I don't like Trump, I can not like Trump for a million reasons, like you've stated. And even if he is just doing it for ego, so he wants a high school named after him, I don't care. You know, nuclear war is worse. I don't know if you get that. Like, I don't know if you've weighed those two options, but
also you notice Trump meets with Putin and it's nefarious and awful. Biden meets with Putin and he's doing the right thing to stand up to Putin. So apparently these two meetings, one of them's awful. How dare he meet with Putin? The other one's wonderful. What a great thing Biden met with Putin.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we got a great system. What's your segment, Lee Camp? Lee Camp, segment number 2. Government secrets.
All right. So the I don't know if you've heard of these folks. The Central Intelligence Agency. I don't know. I mean,
No, wait, aren't they that sort of non-for-profit? Don't they work with the Sierra Club? Am I got the right organization?
I think they sell chocolates in Seattle.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, horrifyingly probably accurate is I can just find online that there's some sort of Seattle's chocolate fucking, to break up the Antifa things of last summer or whatever. I'm sure they were selling crazy chocolate in Seattle.
So yeah, you notice our police are anti-Antifa, which means if you get rid of the double negative, they're pro-fa.
Pro-fascists.
Yeah. So if you're anti-Antifa, what does that make you?
That makes you a pro-fa.
Okay, so the Central Intelligence Agency used American modern art back in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, come on.
Including the works of such artists as Jackson Pollock, Robert Motherwell, Willem de Kooning, and Mark Rothko as a weapon in the Cold War. But I will give away the ending. So for those of you who love any of those artists or any modern art artists, those artists appear to have not known this was going on. So
that's good.
You can still love Rothko without believing he was working with the CIA. Right. So this was a period in the 1950s and 60s when the great majority of Americans disliked or even despised modern art. President Truman summed up the popular view when he said, "If that's art, then I'm a Hottentot." Now, I don't know what that expression means, but it's gloriously 1950s. I dare say I'm a Hottentot.
I will not proclaim to be a part of this Hottentot. That is, when I first heard it, to me, it sounded like something that probably isn't good for you, but tastes great, like a microwavable Hottentot. Like it's some sort of like.
Hold on, do they have microwaves?
That's what it seems like. It's like feels like a tater tot shell with a hot pocket middle. You know what I mean? Doesn't that sound fucking awesome?
Actually, now that you say that sounds fucking delicious.
Right?
Like a hot pocket tater tot would be amazing.
Right? Why are we doing that? Who's on this case? Like somebody make that. Because I could make it, Lee, if I made it, it would be gluten-free and vegan because the potato is now there's no wheat in it. So it's a potato shell. And then inside is just vegan cheese and vegan meat. All right. I'm making this. I'm making this.
We'll sell that. It'll have government secret stamped on the outside. Let's do that.
Those are going to be available at our live show, September 18th. Yep. Microwavable Hottentots.
Well, you see here, if that's art, I'm a Hottentot. And also, when I was growing up, ladies didn't get pregnant because they kept an aspirin between their knees.
Oh, by the way, I'm not going to take the vaccine, but I am going to go to a feed store and take horse medicine to fight. I don't know if you've heard about that trend. Anyway,
wait, no,
sorry.
I have not.
Oh, so people have said. So there's stuff out there saying, Evicticin can help fight COVID. Okay, let's analyze that. So now someone went online saying you can get Evicticin in horse medicine. So people have gone to feed stores, and I think in Mississippi.
Oh, God.
And now there's been an outbreak of people having an adverse reaction to horse medicine.
Hold on. Were people in Mississippi not already strapping feed bags to their faces? Because I thought that was already a thing.
Yes, but this time now they're taking horse medicine.
So, God.
I think
this is the one who survived. This is all of those who survived drinking bleach after Trump said to.
Right. So these are people who don't want to put the vaccine in their body because they feel like it's unsafe, but horse medicine, they will put in their body.
Yep.
America, you never cease to impress me.
Maybe if you did a bleached horse medicine cocktail, I think you're going to be fine.
I think that should be our Hottentot combo meal, like our value meal should be like. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
okay. So as for the artists themselves, many were ex-communists, barely acceptable or socialists, barely acceptable in America in the America of the McCarthyite era, and certainly not the sort of people normally likely to receive U.S. government backing. In the propaganda war with the Soviet Union, this new artistic movement could be held up as proof of the creativity, the intellectual freedom, and the cultural power of the U.S. Russian art strapped in the communist, or this was their view, strapped in the communist ideological straitjacket could not compete with modern art. So the CIA viewed it as a way to tout U.S. culture and to say, look, we're free. We're not what the Soviet Union is. Although I have a sneaking suspicion there's more to it than that, which I'll get to in a minute. But
no,
the existence of this policy, rumored and disputed for many years, has now been confirmed, and this was a few years ago, has now been confirmed for the first time by former CIA officials. Unknown to the artists, the new American art was secretly promoted under a policy known as the Long Leash. So the Long Leash refers to, they would promote these things, but without the artist knowing, and also through multiple back channels. So they call them jumps. So they say, it'd have to be 3 jumps or something, which, this article and another article I read act like these days are over, that, the CIA doesn't, that back then they would do this crazy shit and they'd cover it up by doing it through other back channels. And it's like, it's all still going on. I don't know about not with modern art, but it's all still going on. So the Long Leash still, they still have back channels. They still have fake names. They still have CIA cutouts like NED and USAID. And, there's so many things the CIA is doing now, but you'll read these articles about it's been proven that back in the 60s, they'd been higgity blue. And it's like, yeah, they're still doing that shit. Like this next paragraph, dismayed at the appeal communism still had for many intellectuals and artists in the West, the new agency, CIA, set up a division, the Propaganda Assets Inventory, which at its peak could influence more than 800 newspapers, magazines, and public information organizations. They joked that it was like a Wurlitzer jukebox. When the CIA pushed a button, it could hear whatever tune it wanted playing across the world. Yeah, not anymore. Those days are way over, right?
Wait, what?
The CIA doesn't influence our media nowadays.
All of these older CIA stories, all they do is go, oh, this was the foundation of all of the sinister shit they're doing now. You see how they perfected it. Back then they tried some of these crazy things, and now they're like, oh, now we can perfect it. That's why they're like, oh, initially they're like, oh, the internet, we can't control people's thought. We can't, there's too much free speech on the internet. Well, we'll come and do that. They're using the same playbook. We've talked about this numerous times on the show. Today, they're using the same playbook from back then. It's just way more sophisticated.
Yeah. And back then, I think that's part of the reason you see these programs coming out now is because 2 reasons. One is, yes, some of these CIA agents are older. They're in their 80s and 90s, and they're like, fuck it, I don't have anything to lose. I'm going to reveal some of these things.
Right.
But I think more importantly is the CIA actually views it as useful to give you some of the facts, but to act like it's in the past.
Yes.
So it makes them actually, for I think a lot of Americans, it makes them like less guilty now. Oh, well, look, the good nowadays CIA is admitting that, yes, they did hire Nazis and that was wrong. And, yes, they did used to infiltrate media in Operation Mockingbird, but, that was wrong and those days are over.
It's exactly, I totally, that's such a great point. It's what like Hollywood does when they do, historical dramas or period pieces about racism. it's under the guise of like, well, we got that's fixed.
Yep.
Remember, when Black people couldn't ride on the bus or whatever, now it's all like, today it's great. And it's like, and Hollywood wants to tell itself even that it's way more diverse and inclusive, and it isn't. I mean, it's been forced to in the last year. One of the upsides of all the George Floyd protests of last summer, Hollywood has had to go, oh, wow, we need more inclusion. But I mean, Hollywood has been, and they rewrite these stories, and some of them look, they're good. Like the one, and I'm blanking on it, about the Black woman that worked for the space program,
oh yeah.
The mathematicians, right?
I saw that a long time ago. It was a few years ago.
Hidden Figures. That's the name of it. That's the name of the movie. So on the one hand, it was like, wow, I and millions of other Americans didn't know that these women were part of the space program. So I'm glad they made that movie. That's great. Right. But then they did some, they put Kevin Costner in there as the white hero, and, the white savior, which is like feeds liberals' white savior complex, white liberals' savior complex. And then it's also like, oh, that's not a problem at NASA anymore. And it's like,
yeah, because well, Graham, we fixed it all because the everybody can use the same bathrooms.
Right. It's fixed. And it's still like, man, you're not at all these tech companies.
No, it's like it's a liberal fantasy world where it's like, we overcame these problems. And in fact, Obama has a production company with Netflix, right? Which puts out shit like this. And it's this liberal fantasy of the world, and so much of Hollywood is that. Your friend and mine, Dave Anthony, has a great show about the West Wing, which is just the liberal fantasy of like what government is in America. America just has stuff done to it. We're not the ones fucking perpetrating the murderous actions around the world. So.
Yeah, and that's what the CIA is doing. I mean, this leak, like releasing this documents, and some of, they have to. We've talked about this with the Freedom of Information Act. When they're forced to release something, they'll, redact the shit out of it, or they'll drop, 30,000 page documents and be like, good luck going through this. And then the stuff that they deliver that seems to almost like they're more willingly releasing is stuff like this, like, wow, back in the day when we were fighting the Soviets, the Soviet Union's gone, so we don't need to do that crazy stuff anymore. It's like, and it's effective. And these movies come out like Bridge of Spies and stuff like that, again, glamorizing the olden days, which is what Hollywood does. And it also, Hollywood can then justify having all white casts when they do period pieces involving I did a movie podcast for 10 years. We would talk about this all the time, man.
Oh, really? Just like, they're like, yeah, we want to have an all-white cast. How can we do that? I'll just do a show about the 1950s.
Yeah, we'll do a show about the 50s in an area. And even you watch those movies, like, so there's no Black people anywhere involved in any of this aspect of life, like crazy. And this is what Hollywood does, and then, so then we can all say, oh, they're not doing that anymore, which is also why the media, and there isn't most Americans don't even know who Edward Snowden is, right? Or even Julian Assange. They might know who Assange is, but they don't really know. They'll repeat.
Yeah, they probably have a vague, like, if you say the name, they go, oh, he was like a traitor or something, right? Like,
yeah.
That would be the entire understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like that's why no one thinks it's like happening today. It's always like back in the old,
right.
Things are so much better today. We've really fixed things. And it's like, no, things are absolutely worse.
So let me just go through a little bit more of this. To pursue its underground interest in America's lefty avant-garde, the CIA had to make sure its patronage was not to be discovered. Quote, matters of this sort could only have been done at 2 or 3 removes. This is how the CIA fucking talks. so that there wouldn't be any question of having to clear Jackson Pollock, for example, or do anything that would involve these people in the organization, meaning CIA. And it couldn't have been any closer, because most of them were people who had very little respect for the government in particular, and certainly none for the CIA. So these artists, many of them would have fucking despised the idea that they were being used or promoted or funded by the CIA. But that seems to be the case to some degree. This obviously does not mean these people wouldn't have been loved or famous without this, but it just is an incredible fact. The CIA was kind of weaponizing modern art. So in the Long Leash, the centerpiece of the CIA campaign became the Congress for Cultural Freedom, a vast jamboree of intellectuals, writers, historians, poets, and artists who were set up with CIA funds in 1950 and run by a CIA agent. It was a beachhead from which culture could be defended against the attacks of Moscow and its fellow travelers in the West. At its height, it had offices in 35 countries and published more than 24 magazines, including a magazine called Encounter. But yeah, so they were trying to overtake culture as well as obviously overtake countries with guns. The Congress for Cultural Freedom also gave the CIA the ideal front to promote its covert interest in abstract expressionism. It would be official sponsor of touring exhibits. Its magazines would provide useful platforms for critics favorable to the new American painting, and no one, the artists included, would be any the wiser. The former head of the program said, quote, this is when he's in his 90s, quote, "We wanted to unite all the people who were writers, who were musicians, who were artists, to demonstrate that the West and the United States was devoted to freedom of expression and to intellectual achievement, without any rigid barriers as to what you must write and to what you must say and to what you must do and to what you must paint, which was what was going on in the Soviet Union." So this is a full-on CIA guy explaining why he did this. I think, continue the quote, "I think it was the most important division that the agency had. And I think it played an enormous role in the Cold War." So he has confirmed, and other CIA agents have confirmed this program existed. But here's the part which is complete opinion. I have nothing to back this up. But I think this is kind of what they term a limited hangout. This is the CIA revealing some of what they did, but the real reason, or let's say a greater portion of the reason, is that expressionism can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. You can look at a Rothko or a Pollock and get a lot of different things from it, but you don't look at a Pollock and go, "I need to create revolution against the American government," or "I need to bring down capitalism." And if you do, that's kind of your opinion, and you discuss it with other people why that splotch in that direction meant bring down capitalism to you. Because it is abstract, it does not promote ideas like that in terms of like revolution and things like that. So by promoting this form of art, they are promoting a form of art that is not threatening to the American ruling elite and capitalism as a whole. And so I think that may have been a far greater reason than just, "Oh, we wanted to show we were free and Soviet Union wasn't, so we promoted somebody splotching, paint on a canvas." To me, that doesn't ring fully true.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because if you look at something like, Picasso's, right, Guernica, that very famous anti-war. It's an anti-war painting, right?
And you kind of can't walk away with a different impression unless you're a moron.
Unless you're a complete idiot, or just like, "Wow, why are their heads all weird?" Like you just don't get it. Yeah. But yeah, that painting is like an anti-war painting. It's showing the horrors of war through his cubism, right? Through his I would say revolutionary style of painting, right?
Yeah.
But this also, again, getting back to the point of like, "Oh, they used to do that back in the day." Well, that was their first planting of the seed of like, let's get people more into abstract thinking, because we know the CIA has done all this work on psychology and influencing people, which is why now, and it's something, you know, we've both talked about on our shows together. We did the CIA infiltration of movies. And one of the things I've seen happen is the promotion and you look on Netflix or Hulu or any streaming services like that. Look at the shows that are the most popular. It's all about like revenge or being selfish, or the comedians that get specials. And I'm not knocking some of these comedians. They're funny, talented comics that write good stuff, but it's never like lefty stuff. It's always like, you know, I'm a party guy, I'm a dumb dad, I'm a slutty girl.
And,
like it's never.
And that goes throughout all of modern, you know, art, music, painting,
everything,
comedy, television. If you are saying anything, promoting anything that's outside of at least a pro-corporate mindset, yes, you can be liberal. You can criticize Trump, but if you're beyond that, then you are anathema to the entire American cultural system that is funded by corporations.
Yeah. And so it's not that all of these people in Hollywood and the music industry and are CIA puppets. They're just telling you they're controlling the marketplace. Well, here's what's going to sell. It's not going to be the kind of comedy you and I do, or Ron Placone or Jimmy does, or anyone like that, or Dave Anthony. We have to carve out these weird niches doing, you know, shows in our basements or whatever. Like we got to, you know.
Well, and almost without exception, all of us got, you know, achieved a following during this rare window where the internet was free and they hadn't been able to lock it down enough.
Right.
And now they largely have, you know, I'd say they're about 75% there. And so you aren't, you know, where's the 25-year-old doing what we're doing? I'm not saying they're not out there, but they can't gain a YouTube following anymore because they've locked it down.
They've got to go somewhere else. I mean, why TikTok, since it's run by China, you can kind of get away with it. It's,
well, your 7 viewers there would agree.
Boom. Look at them. What's up? So yeah, it's completely true. And so you're just encouraged to not be political just from a marketing standpoint. You're just like,
it's funny that it's mostly never said to your face. I know you like they kind of said to you, like, stop tweeting political stuff, right? But it's pretty
yeah, I
rare.
lost it. I got replaced on a pilot on a TV show because of my Twitter feed. They literally said, sorry, man, you're too controversial. Like the producer called me and said, you're done. So that's, I think you're right, is rare.
That is honestly rare. Yeah.
But what more of it is like, yeah, you just have a pitch meeting and they'll be like, well, less political stuff, you know, it's so divisive. So we need this or that. So if you went in there and went, yeah, I want to do the show supporting the working class and calling out the ruling class, they'd be like, yeah, it's just too divisive. And you're like, for who? The billionaires that own this multimedia. And that's the thing too. When people talk about,
I never got too divisive. I had managers or agents or whatever, and they'd all start very excited. And then they'd go, yeah, I just couldn't find, I don't know what happened. Yeah. I just couldn't, they weren't into it. I don't know. They would never really give a reason. But it was quite evident that the real reason was because it was, you know, very political. It was making strong points. And I'm using past tense because this was the time when I was touring a lot, doing a lot of stand-up comedy. You know, I'm at every club in New York City, killing, but none of that mattered. You know, the closest I got was the booker for Letterman telling me that because I would interrupt my ranty political stuff with one-liners that were abstract and not political and Stephen Wright style stuff. And he said, yeah, we can get you on, but you got to do a whole set with just the one-liners. It was another way of saying, get rid of all the politics. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what they do, because we can't. The thing I've always pointed out on my show is when you say corporate media, we're also talking about the entertainment industry, because the same, 5 multinational conglomerates that own every major media outlet, they own, like, Hulu is owned, you know, like they're all owned by the same people. Like I was doing this online thing for that I got fired from was like through Entertainment Tonight or some movie news or something like that, Fandango or whatever. And I found out, it was owned by the people that own MSNBC, that own NBC Universal. So like that's who owned it. It's like when you find like, oh man, there's this cool like, juice, and you're like, oh, it's bottled by Coca-Cola. It's still Coca, you know what I mean? Like it's still the Coca-Cola company, and that's the same with entertainment. What you think
and often something will start out like freer when it's kind of an upstart. So like Huffington Post used to have, when they were in their early years, had a comedy writing staff. And so I'd write for Huffington Post, and then they're bought by AOL, and immediately my writing is too edgy. And they specifically told me I couldn't call Donald Rumsfeld a war criminal. So that's where Huffington Post is. But that happened within a week of them being sold to AOL. And I was on Current TV a bunch when it was a thing, and then it sells to Al Jazeera, and Al Gore runs off with the $300 million and doesn't pay anyone, and immediately thereafter, Al Jazeera was trying to be not controversial because they're trying to be accepted by the American mainstream, and so they purge everything that's controversial, This just happens again and again.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. The little startup gets bought out by the big conglomerate. It's over. It's done. I mean, YouTube was this cool thing that some people started in their garage, and now the CIA runs it.
Well, and Google owns it.
Yeah, Google owns it, and Eric Schmidt's been working with hand in glove with the CIA since 2011. I mean, so it's like there's nothing. So, well, that it?
I think the important thing is we had a lot of fun, and we laughed, we cried. I forgot. I have one little paragraph left. One last point on the modern art from this article in The Independent. He confirmed, this is the former head of one of the programs from the CIA, who's in his, I think, last name Brady, it was in his 90s or something during this. He confirmed that his division had acted secretly because of the public hostility to the avant-garde. Quote, "It was very difficult to get Congress to go along with some of the things we wanted to do. Send art abroad, send symphonies abroad, publish magazines abroad. That's one of the reasons it had to be done covertly. It had to be a secret. In order to encourage openness, we had to be secret." Yeah, and I'm sure that only applied to shipping art overseas. It didn't apply to anything else the CIA did in which they went behind Congress and, killed JFK or the such.
Again, Lee, name one time the CIA went behind the back of Congress. Name one time the CIA.
I love this fucking guy. He's in his 90s, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to admit that we shipped a Rothko over to France. I'm gonna fess up, and I'm gonna say, behind Congress's back, we sent a Jackson Pollock to Spain. It's true. It's true.
That's so great. I love that. Yeah. Well, someone in the chat says that you and we have more viewers now than TYT, who's live, I guess. But anyway, yeah, this is such a good point, that this reeks of a deliberate sort of CIA leak that's framed a certain way to get us to believe it doesn't happen anymore. It was just a wacky time with the Soviets, and that they're just diverting us from
it's an important thing to know, even if they're ignoring some of the details. But I think people should read something like this skeptically. Whenever the CIA is ready to confess something, you should also think to yourself, why is it they're ready to confess this, and what is it they're hiding? They're hiding that these things still go on. They're hiding the fact that they did promote modern art because they wanted to crush revolutionary art, which they also did. Watch the fucking, speaking of Hollywood finally catching up, watch the fucking movie about Billie Holiday on, I think it was on Hulu. Fucking great movie. And it's about how they, you know, similar to Lenny Bruce, chased her to her death for singing Strange Fruit. And, you know, Lenny Bruce chased him to his death for speaking out against the government and against religion. And it's that, so they were crushing that kind of art. I mean, Jim Morrison, The Doors, they've really chased him to his death. They were killing that kind of art while they're promoting modern art. So that's what they do. That's what goes unsaid in these articles. It was not just to say, hey, America's free and we allow free thought. Meanwhile, they're killing people like Jim Morrison, Billie Holiday, and Lenny Bruce. Yes, they all overdosed, but it was due to the fucking situation they were in.
Yeah, they got pushed into some situation, and I'm sure there was some CIA handler going, hey man, I'll get you heroin for you, whatever, whatever. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they were at least someone, or at least just, they were like, since they've done so much personality profiling there, they're like, we know how we can push this person over the edge. So we'll do these and these things.
Yeah. And in every one, with all of those three, they were all about to head to prison. I mean, Jim Morrison had charges against him. Lenny Bruce had charges against him. Billie Holiday was being chased. Like, they had the specter of prison right in front of them. And it's like, yeah, they might not have OD'd, but if they locked them up, they knew that would crush their spirit, crush their ability to create the art they were creating. And yeah.
Oh, I gotta love the CIA, right? Makes you proud, this show. Makes you proud to be an American, this show. Like, we should always end every show on the Lee Greenwood song, right? Here's I'm proud to be
an American, where at least I know I'm free. Yeah.
I'll gladly stand up. Yeah, Sam Cooke, somebody put John Lennon, people putting all these names in the chat that are like, yeah, all these other people, you have no idea. Anthony Bourdain. Yeah, a lot of stuff. Well, that's our show, buddy. People share this out, and come and go to either my website or Lee's website to get tickets to our first ever live Government Secrets at the Dynasty Typewriter in beautiful Los Angeles, California. Saturday the 18th. It's a matinee show. So buckle up for some afternoon Gov Seeks in the City of Angels.
We're doing it early because, this shit gives people nightmares.
Yeah, but people need to like leave the theater and still be able to see like the sunshine and go have a nice dinner, and listen to some live music like jazz or something fun, go to a dance club or something like that, which is what you and I are going to do, right? We're going to just go to a dance club.
Everyone's welcome to join us at our Green Juice Dance Club.
I'm so, we're right next to Koreatown, the Dynasty Typewriter, so we could get one of those karaoke rooms, which are always a blast.
There you go.
All right, dude. Well, anything else?
That's it. Everybody check out radindiemedia.com, new outlet I created with Eleanor Goldfield that has all the lefty stuff over there. And new Redacted tonight, all that good shit at leecamp.com.
And go to grahamelwood.com, where I will be forging a new katana out of steel. So getting ready to
meet the woman of his dreams.
To meet the woman of my dreams. Somewhere there's a lady samurai out there that's just feels just as alone as I do. And we're going to meet, and it's going to be great. And we're going to battle.
Yep.
We're going to battle Ronin shoulder to shoulder. And it's going to be great. All right, buddy. Well, have a good night. And we'll do this next week.
See you in a week.
All right, buddy.
Night.
Hey, everybody. It's Graham Elwood. We are going on the road, Ron Placone and I, in September and October. Check grahamelwood.com for tour dates. Probably coming to a city near you. A lot of these shows have sold out in the past. We haven't been on the road in a year and a half because of the pandemic. Come out and join us. The post-pandemic comedy tour. Go to grahamelwood.com for tickets. New cities being announced every day. Join us and support what we do at patreon.com/Graham Elwood and rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. Blockchain cryptocurrency platform. Thank you. You're making Gotham great again.